The Women's Revenge is the latest film by Hui-yu, a Taiwanese artist-filmmaker who has twice before featured in our Amoto Tiger Short competition, with his films Super Taboo and The Glamorous Boys of Tang. After presenting the installation version at Double Square Gallery in Taipei, The Women's Revenge is presented as a world festival premiere at IFFR. Wafa Ghermani is a researcher and curator who specializes in Taiwanese cinema. Currently working at the Cinémathèque Française, she holds a PhD from the Université Paris 3, Le Sorbonne Nouvelle, and programs for Vesoul International Asian Film Festival, Warsaw Five Flavors Film Festival, and Rencontre du Cinéma Taïwanais in Paris.
So Daoyan, I would like to know how you decided to start to do this video and performance all together when you started as students, and how you also decided to, or how, just through what process you were inspired by the films or the culture in Taiwan to do this.
Okay, thank you for your question. I think it's actually quite a long story. Like the newest film called The Women's Revenge is one of my reshooting series pieces, and which I started the series like a few years ago, like after 2014 or 2015. And some audience might still remember that my first short film participated in IFFR was called Super Taboo. That was my first film world experience, actually. Before that, I was usually defined as a video artist. But after that, I think it's also a kind of coincidence. Like I was invited to join the film world, so then I have the excuse to do more. So then I started a series which I called it reshooting, and I cite the word from the film industry, because when we say reshooting or pickup, which is no good, because that means you lose some scenes or you make some mistakes, or then you have to reshoot some parts of the whole project. And I cite the word as a hint for Taiwanese history, because as you know, we have pretty much like the longest martial law or military governance in the 20th century in the island. So compared with other areas in the world, we have the longest military governance. So which is very important background. Like during the era, we have a lot of beautiful, amazing cases, but which is banned or misunderstood or forbidden. So so my mission is try to use my art, no matter it's video art or film, try to record or revisit these specific events or art piece, and then I try to do a new interpretation, and which I call it a reshooting, because I didn't remake the whole work or the whole scripts. I only choose some missing scenes or missing parts, which was misunderstood or wronged. Then nowadays we can have a new technology or new ways, and in a freedom, in a free society, more liberal society, so we can do that again and do it maybe better or do it in a new way to have creative perspectives. So this is the big background of this series, and The Women's Revenge is one of it, and it's newest. And back to regarding the film itself, as you know, you are the expert of Taiwanese history, so you definitely know that during the 80s, the most visible wave or mainstream is called Taiwan 新电影. It's like, how do you translate that? The Taiwan new wave, kind of our new wave. Yeah, it's avant-garde and also very positive and social realistic filmmaking, film works. But except that, we also have a lot of negative cases or invisible cases, or you say dark side of the film history of Taiwan, which is called the black film. And I was also inspired by a very important work called the Taiwan Black Film by director, who's he? Ho Jian, yeah, Mr. Ho Jian. It's a very inspiring documentary to me. So I was reminded about my childhood memory. Actually, these films I wasn't have a chance to see, to watch them, to watch the whole films, even not one of them. But most of the experience was from posters when I was in 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 the cafeteria, 自助餐, uh, these kind of cheap restaurants during the 80s. And as a elementary school students, I always have the chance to see this kind of bloody and violence and sexual images on the wall. So this is a very strong memory to me. So then I was 44 years old this year, and from last year I decided to dig the memory again. And so this is why I started to do the shooting project about the revenging series. Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting, because what I discovered from my research in Taiwan, that indeed many films have disappeared, and what is only remaining are the posters. Like for Taiwanese language films, you don't have the films anymore, but you have only the posters with also a lot of very sexy women. So I understand better what you say. And about Taiwan new cinema, what I also think is really interesting in what you do is like, in the 80s, the directors were, in Taiwan new cinema, they were going back to their childhood memories to do films, but also in that way to extract the political aspects of it. They would not deal with it directly. And nowadays in Taiwan, you have all this movement of, you know, retro, of vintage, in manga, for example, with what the 80年代 or the 1980s by Shen Huang, or even commercial movies like what the 少女时代, Our Times, and this kind of film, but they always eliminate all the political aspect, or they don't question it, and you do in your film. And I think it's quite interesting in the way I watched your film first, because I think I didn't get them first. I didn't get it first because maybe I discovered the film first before the poster. But I understand through the poster how the poster just developed a kind of imagination of what was inside the film. And so I wanted to know how you worked with your actors, because, for example, in your Women Revenge, I really like how men are portrayed suddenly as like really weak and really changing this kind of point of view on them. And it also reminds me of Taiwan Black movies, a documentary in which they always say like men are being threatened by women. Mm-hmm. So I see this kind of bunch of women being very like strong and badass and pitiless. So I'm quite curious about this film, but in fact also about the other films, like The Glamorous Boys of Tang, or any other films. How you work with your actors? How does the process go in creation and recreation?
Okay. First of all, I would like to talking about language issues. I think when, as you mentioned about some features, Taiwan modern features from Taiwan, they also try to go narrate or talk about the old days, and in different ways. But you know, I think features especially they need commercial interest. So they need they had to find an easier way for the audience, for the public. But of course, video art or so-called contemporary art has another totally different logic when they try to talk about the same topics. So I think my video art is like still under that kind of tradition. Like we focus on visual part and conceptual part more than to build more than the narrative part. So so maybe my work couldn't offer audience a storyline. But what I'm trying to give them is like a multi layers of imaginations. So all these, um, especially the newest one, all these leading roles, characters, and images and things were all inspired from those kind of female exploitation film. So, for example, you see a woman holding a knife in that pose. Actually, was inspired by a very famous poster of the film, which is called Safu. Is about women who murder her husband
The Woman
eventually.
of Wrath.
It's a yeah, and the scripts writer is actually original writer is called Yang, a very famous female writer in Taiwan in late 70s. So yeah, this is the basic idea. Like I want to create a multi layers of it's like a wave. I try to create a lot of wave, step by step. I push audience to my like dreamlike or a psychedelic world, which was related to those kind of bloody memories and even desire and especially when I was just a kid actually at the time at that time. And but these impact from the posters or advertisements are very strong. So how do I work with my artists and my partners is like we always have a workshop first before we do the shooting job. So the workshop is very important to us to create the to the link between each other. So I was always the first one to talk about my personal memory, because my work is not just a, a, a telling about a big narration, but also it's in between the personal and the collective memory. It's always like a go and forward feedback between individual and and a group. So I try to use the workshop to connect each other. So all the female uh, performers, they will first work together. There are 5 of them. So we have the workshop together, and then the second day is the male performers join us together. So we train our body, and we do some specific method to open the mind, and we share the private stories. We talk about personal, sexual experience even, and then we create a, how do you say, friendship together. Okay. Before that, they didn't know each other, so we need like few days to connect all the individuals and to bring them the belief that we are doing something interesting. And then of course they watched whole the film, which I will send them the DVD, all the copies, and then they can study it. So try to interpret it by themselves. So then I will have their feedback. So actually some ideas like the costume were from their idea. Like they like red more than blue, so that then eventually we decided, okay, the main color, the theme color will be red, and then black, and then white. So this is the 3 color you will mostly see in my movie. Yeah, something like that. Like we really work together, and with the costume designer as well, and also we have some mentors, like theatrical mentors, that they can join us to develop our body. Yeah, so which is really in interesting process. Yeah.
Okay. And also, what I think is really interesting in your work and is the reshooting process and in this series, it's how you can link the avant-garde cinema somehow with this very popular cinema. Because if you take black movies, it was really most of them were really exploitation movie. We can maybe make an exception with Yang Jia-yun, who was the only female director. But if you take the Glamorous Boys, for example, you can see that it's more from the basically normally the avant-garde with Zhang Chaotang doing the photography, and he did the photography for Sha for Woman of Wrath. So you can see all it's mixed up together with Un Yanzhen, and also this very gory exploitation thing. And I think in your work you do that most of the time. It's like trying to relink this kind of very different artistic or movements in Taiwan. I don't know if you had this in mind or it just occurred by chance, because when I did my research on you and everything, I discovered all this linked that I hadn't known before. So
maybe it's a destiny, like but like in 80s, these artists can work together. It's quite amazing, like Zhang Zaotang and Qiu Gangjian, and even the one of the leading role called Yong Chen-ze. He act in The Glamorous Boy of Tang. He's in prison right now, actually, because of scandal. But anyway, I think for me maybe it's a destiny, because when we were making The Glamorous Boy of Tang, we also invite a very important, you definitely know him, the film critic, Li Youxin, 老师. Okay, Mr. Lee, he has a role in The Glamorous Boy. So at the very beginning, he was just our advisor, like a consultant. So he knew Zhang Zaotang, and also he knew Qiu Gangjian very well. So he even has an original script of The Glamorous Boy in his house. So he's definitely the expert about the director and also about the film. So he gave us a lot of suggestions, really helpful. And then during the process, one day just a flash come to my brain, like, why don't you? Because he actually pretty enjoy about performing to perform in any kinds of film. So I just asked him, like, why don't you just act one role in my film? And he immediately say yes. And I think this is really great, because like The Glamorous Boy of Tang, in the production we invite a lot of these kind of very unique artists and experts. They are from different kinds of group. Like we have a drag queen, the tallest guy in the movie. He's actually from New Zealand, but became a very famous and influential drag queen in Taipei. So he has it's also a very important symbol to nowadays Taiwan, like that shows that the society are changing. We become a very diverse community, and we have free to talk about everything. So compared with the 30 years ago when the film was made during the martial law governance, it's a totally different situation. So we can do more based on his idea and spirits, based on the scripts. We can develop more. We have more imagination about it. So this is very impressive to work with this artists from different fields, drag queen, film critics, and also some specific how do you call that, 社团 group, like organization. They're trying to focus on developing bodies or sexual performance. So it's really very active right now. So it's the same when we were doing the women's revenge film, because we also have a lot. When we have the audition, there are thousands different kinds of performers came from different kinds of fields, not just the theatrical field, but also the film performers, and also the some not professional performers. They feel they are interested about doing this kind of mission. So it's a very touching voyage to work with my partners. So I think that's why I call it a destiny, because I didn't mean to do it at very beginning. I just try to dig more, and I think it will sooner or later it will happen. When you dig more, more people will join you, and then you will be united by this kind of wave, like from the history and also from the invisible tradition, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like how in the glamorous but also women's revenge, it's as if you were unearthing and digging what was hidden, like especially in the glamorous, like it's like the scene that were not made, because when you see the 80s films, there is not so much in it, like there is no real sex scene, or there is no
Yeah.
it's a very strange film indeed, but it's a very
Indeed.
very like somehow normal in some ways, and
Yeah.
and the same with like the end of the women's revenge, when you see the young people and you see this kind of crazy thing you had in Taiwan at the time, which means that school students or even society was really repressed, and behind the curtains you had all this kind of fantasy and all this kind of violence, and that was a political violence too, like that was only expressed in film. So I think it's really interesting how you are able to do that, like to make it very vivid. And in fact, I was wondering if you have started to do the same rereading or rewatching of other movies. And I was thinking of two things, like, because only recently, Taiwan has started a new movement of saving these Taiwanese language films that were before that forgotten and despised and everything. And now there is a new trend of putting them back on stage, but also about the official movies. Like, I don't know if you had seen, or if you see, so Santingdian, like Swimmer's film, that was kind of film you watched, like this Xiong film, this
Which
kind
one?
of all of them, the Li
You mean kind of like
or the 17, all the Xiong Yao's love stories, all this with the.
You mean the political propaganda movie, or
They were not always political. Well, they were like, but more the love stories that were all around Taiwan in the 70s and everything. And
yeah,
because I was wondering if you had started to think about it and how they can be seen otherwise, or for the moment it's not part of your reshooting process, or.
yeah, indeed. I think it's also a very interesting suggestion. I would definitely have to do it in the future. Like, you mean you'll be about reshooting the 70s love story?
Yeah, because in fact
Is
it's
that what you
quite
mean?
violent. Yeah, because when I was working on this film, I saw many of them, and I realized that the way it was shot, people are like in prison. They are in these big houses with a lot of frames everywhere and object, but they can't breathe. So I think somehow they were like commercial, official, but at the same time very scary movie. So when I saw your film, I was like, yeah, maybe there is something to do with that. I don't know. Or even the Taiwanese films, like in the weird stuff, they remind us of black movies sometime or somehow. So yeah, I was.
Yeah, I think you are right. Like, even no matter it's from 60s, 70s, or 80s, a lot of these kind of genre in Taiwan, no matter how you want to call it, love stories, or action kung fu movie. Anyway, they are all censored. They have, the funding was mostly from government, and so they choose the director, they choose the title, they decided what kind of movie they want. It's like arrangement. They control the percentage of how many story has to be told, like love and horror movie. And anyway, so this is all under control. So nowadays when we review this kind of movie, I think they are all weird in a sense. Like, they won't be that, they are not that kind of regular genres from Western. All of these genres, when they were imported to Taiwan, the destiny is like they will be adjusted, and they will be shaped to what government wants. I think that this is also why the reason why. So yeah, you are definitely right. My next series should be focused on this so-called romantic or love.
No, I don't want to believe it. I was thinking like it would be perfect for this kind of
no.
rereading.
But I also have a feedback to your question, like as you mentioned, like a lot of nowadays, including artists and directors, more and more these art director or artist or director, they try to respond the old days, the old memories, because I think after 2016, when President Tsai Ing-wen was elected, I think it's a new identity is coming up. A new identity is are appearing. It's quite different from before. Before we have independent movement or the identity about Taiwanese, but I think now younger generation they have the desire, a new desire, and curious about how can we tell our story, how can we shape the subject of Taiwan. This is a kind of new thing, different from 90s, in my opinion, which is really different. Like youngest people, like 20 years old, they were born after 2000. They are totally native, native Taiwanese. They are not educated as a Chinese or so this kind of uh, digging and building archives for Taiwanese films. Now we have a film center, new film center right now. 电影中心 is a new institute, so they have different missions to rebuild the archive of Taiwan movie. So I think that is why more and more art workers they are using this archive to do the new to recreate the new story or to retell the story. And I think I'm also one of them. But I think what I try to make it different is like I won't tell them a story or try to make a narration about what happened there, what happened, where do we have that. My hope is I try to connect the individual personal experience to the collective experience or collective memory. So I always like to create these kind of psychedelic and dreamlike things, and that force you to think. And it's like a mist. You will lose your way in my video, but eventually I hope you gradually you can step by step find all the tracks, and then you can rebuild the image of what I'm trying to bring you, something like that.
Yeah, and also what you do,
Yeah.
I know it's not you're not doing like a commercial cinema or anything, but I think what is really interesting is also how you bring the body back into the movies. Like Taiwan, I think in the recent year has completely erased body or desire or sex or anything. It's really, especially in commercial for young people, like but even for adults, we don't have so many. Yeah, it's you see like the recent movies like very shy, and you don't never touch it. And I really appreciate how you put like really the body back into the center too, and I was wondering, like watching all your movies, you can see some current trace, like the presence of water, like that comes all over. Like we can be linked to Tsai Ming-liang, of course, but you do it in a very different way, I think. And of course of sex, and also of the slit. Like you really like to show throats or body being slitted and with like blood gushing around. And it's really something that we find from one film to another. And is it something that comes back naturally, or is it something you want to stress, or I don't know, like it's
Good question again. Yeah, there are two kinds of level. First level is about the Taiwanese, how this value or hobby or behavior. Like most of the Taiwanese, as you know, they are so polite, they are so friendly, but they are not sexy usually. Most of them are not sexy or try not to be sexy. And I think it's a unconscious behind our ideology and education. And I think even it was like almost 3 decades after the lifting of martial law, but we still keeping the tradition. Like as you said, the uniform in school, we still most of the students still wearing uniform until high school, right? So and also we still have the military mentor, 教官 in school. So these are very invisible, system, still keeping working, operating in our daily life, like officers, teachers, and the military service, and also a lot of symbol about our nation, the 国民党 sign, KMT sign, and also the O flag. These are very, invisible ideology behind our experience. So that's why I thought, um, and go back to the 80s, why Chou Gang-jian tried to do this kind of film? Why this exploitation film, also femalist film, try to making this kind of bloody story? I think there are a reason behind the political forbidden. Like if we can talk about political things, why can we? Maybe we should talk about sex. Let's make a horrible story that men killed by women, or I think this is very important track behind the environment. So even they become kind of cow film, and cow film usually in Taiwan, people are expecting bloody things usually, and violence, a Hollywood B movie, and but to me it is a possibility. There is a possibility if we go back again to review this kind of cheesy effect and cheesy story. You can still find some, um, something worse to redevelop, and something behind collective body. If there is a body called collective body between in the island or the nation, I think it's a chance to. There is a chance if we can revisit that, and yeah, I think it's my mission. You're right. I'm trying to using the chance. It's my excuse to say that, like, there is a bunch of cow film in the 80s, so let's go there and try to play with it again, and try to making something new based on it. And so this is a pretty much like a body politics or biopolitics issues to me, for sure. And I think I will keep in doing that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and while you were talking, I was going back to the slit and the wound and the blood, and for me, like thinking of all what you said and all your film, it's as if, and I was also thinking about this film Detention, and there is this imagined white terror. And it's as if every time like the body was, or the body of Taiwan, of the body of history, was a wound that would never stop bleeding. Like nothing has been completely discussed and unveiled, and there is something like going on. And of course, in Women's Revenge, when you see the guy with a slit, it reminds you like it's kind of reverse of women being raped and a man being hurt. But yeah, I think you have all this kind of like for me, the wounds and this blood, the fact that it's still bleeding and flowing.
Yeah.
It's also, I think, yes, all this repressed history, like all the blood that is still going on bleeding after years of repression. Because until now, even if Taiwan is more open and history is more talked about, you still have this very strong Guomindang propaganda against all this like repressed Taiwan history. So yeah, I think it's yes. Now I get it better.
Yeah, you're right. It's we have, like I said, many artists and directors have trying to create their own method to dealing with these historical materials. Let's put in this word, historical materials from the country. So like we also have the National Archive Institute, 国家档案局, that thing that is from government. They trying to to rebuild the archive. But as you know, during different governments like Ma Ying-jeou or Chen Shui-bian or Li Denghui, these presidents, they have different policies. So you never know like how the nation you don't know how can you trust the nation. Sometimes the governments sometimes they have different ideology or political reasons behind that. So I think this is also our mission to interpretate and to find more sources, historical sources, and and use our own language or grammar to tell about it, to talk about it. Yeah.
And just maybe to end, normally, if everything is okay, you're going to be in Rotterdam in June to do a performance of Women's Revenge.
Yeah, ideally, yeah.
How will it be? Because I've seen like somehow two versions. I've seen the one screen version of the film, and I've seen an exhibition views like with on multiple screen. And how do you plan to do your performance? If you can say a few words, but without telling too many.
Yeah. As you know, the Women's Revenge now has two versions: for short film and 5-channel multi-channel installation, which are a bit different. But the performance version is completely different because it will be a AR and live streaming performance. So the audience will be asked to use their cell phone to download a specific app designed from us, and we will create a lot of bloody effect using AR techniques. So they need to use the cell phone, probably iPhone only. So they will use their cell phone to live stream the show for us. So their friends could be also also watch this film, this performance. Sorry. So there will be a 4 human performance in a space, in a physical space, and with all the audience surrounding them. And then they will use the app to visualize all the effect and bloody things and a subtitle as well. And then they will do the live streaming on Facebook or probably YouTube. And then we will have a console, so to collect all these video footages or sources. So we will reconstruct them together on a TV wall outside the space. So there will be a different layers again. The first layer is the human performance without anything, without any only maybe some suits, or that's it, without any knives or guns. Nothing will happen on their body. But with the cell phone, there will be the second layer. You will see a lot of cheesy movie effect with the performers. And then the 3 layers is like their friends, the audience friends. They can watch the whole performance by internet. And then the 4th layer is all the video sources will be reconstructed in one big TV monitor, TV wall. So yeah, it's kind of response to the so-called social realistic in Taiwan in the late 70s. Because to me, that is just, or even, of course, including this exploitation film. For me, that's just a kind of, there's no social realistic. It's just kind of excuse for the especially male audience, 男人, and for them, they offer an excuse for them to watch these kind of body suffering and also the women's suffering things, or sexy women raped. I think this is something like nowadays modern technology, when we are using live streaming to show some crazy things on the street. We don't really care about what happened there, and only reason is like we just love some violent things. We just love to be watched or to be noticed. And so I think live streaming is a very interesting form to interpret the same subject again. So this will be the third version of this concept. But of course, the core idea might be the same, but I think the live art version in June will be completely different piece from the film. Yeah, but
Awesome.
people will love it, I think. Yeah.
I can't. Well, I'm not sure I can go, but I can't wait to see it on the live stream.
Yeah.